Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast, Risk For Heartbreak. I am your host, Christina, and I'm so glad you decided to join me today. For those of you who are new here, I pray you find value in at least one thing I say today. And to my old and faithful returning crew, you know just how much I appreciate you. So, without further ado, let's jump into it. Over the years, I've had the honor of homeschooling and tutoring and nannying multiple children ages 4 months to even early high school age. And while that was my supplementary job at the time, because I was acting and doing stunts, and I would do that on the side, in these last few years, the entertainment climate has drastically shifted and everything has kind of moved outside of the States. And I went from working a ton on set to now supplementing by working in homes with children. And it's really interesting because while that was the nature of things before, it was set, then that it has swapped. And since, of course, I found a new job. But my last family has one little boy that I absolutely love. His mom may even be watching this now, but I had him from the time that he was 18 months old until he was 3 years old. So we went from diapers to fully potty trained, from simple word formation to speaking in full sentences and even holding conversations, and from Miss Rachel to Spider-Man and the like. We did so much growing and learning together, and he had so many milestones in that period of time that I can't even really count them all. He has since, of course, gone on to preschool and is thriving, okay? And we knew he would. He's amazing. But one milestone of his that I want to actually speak about today is breaking versus building. And then there's a little extra thing on there called engineering. What triggered this entire memory and thought process with me for this podcast is a single tweet that I saw from a man that I followed that said, "It is impossible to build with a breaker." I don't generally like to categorize people and put people in all of these boxes and things like we like to do these days, but say we want to get free and then we're not free because we put ourselves in boxes. But for the sake of these 2 episodes, I absolutely will be doing that because people can show up relationally in these 3 categories, and it's just something that I've noticed. So today I want to talk about what a builder, a breaker, and an engineer is, and this is the first installment. And then the next episode, we're actually going to talk about what that looks like relationally. So, of course, before this, I have to ask you, are you a breaker? Are you a builder? Or are you an engineer? I want you to think about that. Let's relate. There was one day when this young boy that I used to watch, we're just going to give him a name. His name is Miles, switched from being a breaker to a builder. And I'll never forget this day. Every Monday through Thursday, if I was not on set, I was with Miles. I would arrive to his parents' home around 9 a.m. and leave around 5 p.m. every single day. Well, Monday through Thursday. We would be together all day, eating, learning, playing, learning how to tie your shoes, how to blow your nose, how to put your clothes on, brush your teeth, baking, cooking. I mean, everything, napping, learning, all of the things that you could think of that you would do with a child all day. His mom is a former teacher, so she had all of these amazing craft supplies that were geared towards his homeschooling, which I was also doing with him. So it started out as kind of like nannying and sitting and went into homeschooling. So we were working on this curriculum. So he had everything that he really needed to thrive, and he did. And I will never forget when he entered into his Terrific Twos phase, and you guys all know what that is. We're going to call it Terrific Twos, although we know what it really is. And most of us have been around children that are toddler age, so we understand what can happen during this period of time in their little lives when they're just beginning to really, truly form their own identities separate from mom, and they are beginning to challenge boundaries and testing rules to see what really is workable for them. What is the space that they have to physically, mentally, and definitely emotionally evolve or not? And it is my belief, just from anecdotal experience, that Terrific Twos is where much of what we become germinates. And if you look around, you don't have to squint too hard to see some Terrific 2-year-olds in adult-sized bodies. Now, I don't say this as a slight against adults who are really actually two, but more or less as an extraction of what results from boundaries and rules being tested in a proper way versus an improper nurturing during this very, very critical phase in a child's psychological life. There are tons of studies done on these toddler years and how critical, should I say, it actually is for them. So the terrific, I almost said it, the terrific twos are smack dab in the middle. Now, there was this day where little Miles went from pouring oatmeal on my head, blueberry throwing across the room, toy breaking, car breaking, umbrella breaking, cell phone breaking, block knocking, tantrum throwing, strong-willed and cognizant moments of deviance to this early childhood engineer of his own life. There was one lesson in his curriculum that I will never forget, and it proposed this question. It said, "Are you a breaker or are you a builder?" And I remember asking him this question, "Are you a builder or are you a breaker?" I almost said his actual name. And I remember asking him this question, "Miles, are you a builder or a breaker?" Now, he calls me my Tina or my teen. And so Miles says, "My teen, I'm a builder." And he was very sure of himself. Now, this was definitely a prophetic declaration at the time because he had yet to manifest in the natural, amen, as a builder. But when he told me that, even though he didn't really know the definition, and I had to explain really the definition to him of what a builder does and does not do, I think he knew deep within himself what he was capable of, though it had not begun to manifest yet. So time goes on and he begins collecting Hot Wheels cars. Now, if you've ever seen these Hot Wheels cars, you can get 5 or 6 of them for, well, they're probably not $5 anymore, but you used to be able to get them pretty inexpensively. And so you can collect and collect and collect because they have all the varieties. His grandparents were loading him up. His mom and dad were loading him up. My teen was loading him up with Hot Wheels, and he was also getting a lot of remote control cars. He had a ton of remote control cars. It was so funny. So one day, while I was building with his blocks, and maybe I can insert a picture here, I used to build these little elaborate castles and things that we would make stories around them and all of that stuff. And he would always break them down. Always, always, always. He would always crash them. I could just barely get the last little piece on before he would crash it. And this time, instead of crashing it and ramming it with his cars, he actually just started lining up his cars near this thing that I had built. And he was lining them up. Initially started like fours, like he was lining them up in fours, and then he was lining them up smallest to largest. And then it continued, as the days went on, he got more enthralled with lining up his vehicles, and it would be a whole line. And then we got to the point where I taught him how to organize them by style of car. So he had his supercars, he had his classic cars, he had his trucks, he had his semis. He had like a little semi. It was amazing. He had sedans, right? He had all these different types of cars. So we organized them by category so he could recognize them, right? And he started mimicking that. Now, there's this window in the den and learning playroom that they have where we would go and we'd like watch the mailman and the landscapers outside from time to time, a few times a week. And we'd also sit at this window on this couch to have his quiet reading time, because every day we would do quiet reading time and he would get to just read a book by himself, even though he couldn't technically read yet. But he would look through the pictures and flip the pages and tell himself the story. And we would increase the time every, couple weeks. I would increase the time. So we do like 5-minute time and then 10-minute, and then he'd get to 15, and he could do 20 minutes sitting by himself, quiet, reading his books. So in this window, that was a deviation, but in this window, there were blinds in the window. So I noticed that he took his little Hot Wheels and he started putting them on the blinds and lining them up on the blinds like a garage. And he was just kind of marveling at his innovation in the window. And I was like, this is really amazing, Miles. So of course I took pictures of them in the window. I'll see if I can insert those here. And it just hit me. it was like eureka. It hit me that he was destined to actually be an engineer of his life. Now, let me explain what I mean by the differences between being a builder, a breaker, and an engineer. Now, I would consider myself as a builder. I love to take rudimentary parts, starting from ground zero and creating a design that is unique to me, and not necessarily for possession or even management or selling, but to just generally create. And I have been like this since I was a very small girl. You could talk to my parents and ask all of the things that I created, all of the things that I did around the house, the painting, and it was a lot. But it has to be unique to me, the things that I'm doing. So otherwise I'm innovating, which I think is another skill that I have. I don't mind innovating, though I think that is probably more of a meta skill to creativity, which is a soft skill. Okay. Anyway, throughout my life, I have created just for the sake of creating. I have created businesses and just scrapped them, not really even to start them, but just to let me start this business. Let me see if I can build this thing from the ground up. And then that was it. Right. And so I didn't do it either. Like I don't create, I remember like they have aerial competitions and pole dance competitions and stuff. And when I used to do that, I never wanted to compete because to me, I don't compete my art. It's just expression. Why would I compete it? And it's nothing to those who feel that that's what they should do. But personally for me, I just like to build the thing, and I didn't do it because I wanted to make other people marvel at it, right? Or to be seen. So as an actress, I'm an actress, but I really hate self-promotion. So you see these very real parts of myself as being a builder, but not necessarily what we're getting ready to talk about now. Even down to the point of like, I actually need someone to manage what I create because I just am not a promoter. I am a manager. I can manage other people's things, but when it comes down to my creation, it actually takes a lot of effort from me for some reason. I just really enjoy, I think, the process of building something. I just really like that. So it took me a while to come to that conclusion in my life that I do just enjoy the process of ideation to creation. And I don't exactly as much enjoy the engineering part of it, but I can do it. Now, I want to break down what I mean by engineering now. Now, this one is closely related to building, and it includes building, but it also includes some other things. So an engineer requires you to go through the same steps. You take those rudimentary parts, you are starting from ground zero and you're creating a unique design. And then you are adding this management element to your creation. There is this focus actually on solving problems with your creation. And then you are now imbuing or infusing a purpose, or it becomes service-based. And then there's this overall reason beyond the creation itself just being what it is. It's something that has to kind of keep going. It keeps living. It's evergreen, right? It's alive. And initially, if not generally, it is going to be in the hands of the builder. Now, here is the engineer, should I say. Now, here's the most interesting part about an engineer. They not only build what they create, they interweave this purpose into said creation, but they also dismantle it. They take it apart. And some might say they break it down. They break their creation down to rebuild it, to innovate it, to make it better, and to improve it again and again and again and again. Engineers are not only smart people, but they are ever building people and ever breaking and ever innovating people. But an engineer doesn't just become, okay? Engineers don't just come out of thin air. An engineer was once a breaker. An engineer was once a builder, separate from when they became this fullness of those two things. An engineer is shown how to appreciate each stage of this process, and additionally is given the space to mess up, and with a simple nudge, graduate from the mess up phase to a level that comes next, right? So you build, you break, and you're given the space to do those things and get the feel there. And then you are encouraged to then craft that. And so lastly, I want to talk about the breaker. Now, this person is someone who is solely there to deconstruct, what was engineered. They come in like a wrecking ball. They are excavators. They are the demolition experts and masters of dissection with no plan to rebuild. Breakers just want to see things come down, and they are very much specialists in that arena. Now, when Miles first entered into the scene, into his Terrific 2 scene, he went from, having this curiosity, as a baby, he was very curious, to an expert level crasher, okay? He was expert at breaking some things, all of his toys, all the food, all the arts and crafts, pretty much anything that he could get his hands on was going to be broken, crashed, smothered, drowned. I mean, all of the things. And he didn't necessarily have a reason behind it. It seemed in the beginning, it seemed that it was more just like he was learning the extent of his motor skills and his boundaries. And, literally were almost groundbreaking, some of these things that he was doing. But something interesting really began to happen. And it was because of the nurturing that surrounded his exploration of these things in this way, is that he saw the response that he would get when he was crashing and breaking and drowning and flushing things. And then it became a mission for him because he recorded these interactions, this attention that he would get from throwing food across the kitchen. You could say, Miles, please don't throw that blueberry. Oh, now it's funny. Boom. And I know you have seen children do this, right? Or screaming at the top of his lungs while his mom and I were having a conversation. And he would just become more amplified because he desired to break up the conversation, especially if we said, please give us a second, or hold on, Miles, we're talking, right? That was ammunition for him. So as a breaker at that time in his life, his impetus became about garnering the attention that he desired, when he desired it, and how he desired it. And he would do anything to make sure that happened. Miles fed off of seeing the chaos of the blocks flying, and he knew when things were crashing down and there was a mess strewn about the floor, that was his stamp on the world. He had been here, and in that way, it was very self-serving. So a builder creates without a purpose attached to its creation, but with a desire to see their imagining erected. A breaker tears down with the purpose to put their stamp on a moment in life by serving themselves. And an engineer builds a creation with purpose and intent attached to it for it to serve others. So I want to ask you now, which one do you see most reflected in your life? Which one do you most identify with if you were to look back on your life? And I had to be honest with myself as I was going through this personally. I was like, I'm a builder. I'm not an engineer. I can, but my strong suit is building. I'm ideation, creation. That is my strong suit. And I know that about myself. So that means I know I need someone who is an engineer. I know I need someone, when the context is right, who is a breaker. If I'm going to get things done, if I'm going to have a business, if I'm going to have anything be successful, you have to have all of those components. So which one do you most identify with? Of course, the moment Miles began to line up his cars and he started to color in the lines and he started to count his pieces of food and separate them by color, all of these things he learned, we nurtured these things into him, and allow his mom and I to speak without interrupting, or if he did interrupt, it would be politely. Creating the car garage and the blinds. In this moment, his personal mission switched from being personal affirmation or self-affirmation and destruction to appreciation and purpose, right? There was a purpose behind all of the things that he did. He appreciated everything that he did. And that is the mark of a servant leader's heart. So what we will discuss in this next installment, on this next episode, part 2 of this Builder Breaker Engineer series, is how do these archetypes show up in adult form, particularly within our relationships? Can you build with a breaker? Some people are never shown how to appreciate, rebuild, engineer, give purpose to something that belongs to them. They're never shown. They aren't encouraged to figure it out and then nurtured to be conscientious. And it shows in our modern day relationships. So it is my hypothesis that relationally, there seems to be a certain pairing that is necessary for success. And maybe this could be a vetting tool that can be used when you're seeking out the right people to be connected to, no matter the style of the relationship. But not that anyone should be left out, because no one should be left out. But I do think that there are some pairings that just seem to work a bit smoother than others. So I hope you guys will come back next week as I break down this tweet. It's impossible to build with a breaker. And we kind of just explore some thoughts and revelations surrounding the builder, breaker, and engineer mindset of people. As always, remember to love yourself first so you can then go and love your neighbor. Until next time.